they're reading off numbers for the split the, or not split the pot, but the raffle.
I won twice.
He won twice.
I gave one away. Tammy won the. No.
So,
And then Debbie won. I'm sitting there like, this is rigged.
That was a good time.
It was good.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
You missed out.
Yeah, the NBA
Mr. Howard.
It was fun.
We were
Mr.
in soccer,
Howard.
softball.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, I thought his wife.
I will.
She's ready to go
They
to
told me
Vegas.
not to talk directly. You can hear me. Don't even say you can't hear me. I know you can.
You can't hear
I
him.
got so much stuff. I know. I'll move it. All right, I'll move it closer. I'll try to leave it. Like, no, this
The chairs are a little stiff.
Can I just open my hand? That's how I
Can we get you a lab? Can we get a
What if I
lab?
like,
Yeah,
you know,
can I just give me a headset?
Britney Spears?
Yeah.
you know the musicals where they bust out songs?
Brittany Grant?
I can walk
Like
around.
start singing, dancing.
High five
Yeah.
people.
He can give high fives and I can be out there high fiving.
We're taking this to the next level.
You'll be turning it off.
No, I think it sounds amazing.
I can dance.
Okay, now we're going down a path I don't know that anybody wants to.
She'd be like, oh, we're turning her mic off.
Yes.
Yeah, because the sound system really just needs to figure out like fix that.
Okay. We're good to go.
Yep, you guys ready?
I'm ready as I'm.
Good.
Hey.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, May 23rd regular school board meeting. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Carpenter,
Present.
Mr. Leeds, Mrs. Hagedorn,
Here.
and Mr. Fulham.
Present.
Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance. Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
Thank you. Item 1.4, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds, Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. And moving on to Section 2, discussion and comments from the board. We'll start with 2.1, legislative. Mr. Leeds.
There's not too much going on in legislation right now. This is the last week of in session in Columbus before the summer break, so there's not real much going on. But I did have a conversation with Mr. Hall on Friday. And I got to tell you, last meeting I was enthusiastic about this pipeline deal where we would get our money back, but right now I'm not too much, I'm not there. Because, to explain what's going on, the pipeline went through the southern part of the state, and there's only about 3 or 4 legislatures that are involved with that. In order to fight it, you got to have about 25 or 30, which means that you have to get at least 20 to 25 of legislators in the other part of Ohio that haven't got a dog in that hunt. So if they don't want to get on board, then you can't fight it. There is the pipeline has a big contingency in Columbus that is lobbying to keep the taxes down. So they're fighting that battle. But Mr. Hall did say that the group, and I don't know who that group is, that wrote up the way the pipeline was being put in and what was to be going on with the taxation, they wrote it up wrong. So I explained to him, as far as I was concerned, we exposed those people that did it wrong. And maybe we can get some action through the press to take care of that. But if it happens to be on party lines, then that's not going to fly. But we're going to keep on. And he said right after the summer break that he expects to hit it hard and see what we come up with. But, I don't know. If the tax commission does not rule that they have to pay the taxes, then I'm afraid we got an uphill battle all the way. So we'll see. That's all I have.
Okay.
Butler Tech, I believe Mr. Guido is not able to make it today. And then,
I do want to share, I
Yes.
attended graduation from Butler Tech. It was a great ceremony down at Cintas Center. And one of the speakers was a Monroe graduate. He did a great job. And Mr. Guido also was a speaker at being president of the board for Butler Tech. So it was really nice ceremony.
good. 2.3, finance.
Finance, we did not have a meeting this month.
Okay, very good. And 2.4, student achievement.
Great. I want to give a congratulations to our primary school Hornets of the Month for May, Nolan Rivera, Fox Thompson, Noah West, Mason Doobie, Abby Hodge, Rihanna Sharma, Kaylee Domingo Ordonez, Finn Bell, Catherine Barker, Ridwan Abdallah, Caroline Merling, AJ Leverage, Callie Grant, Kanan Hickerson, Ronnie Davis, Heidi Thomas Vasquez, Hayden Arnold, Jaden McNearly, Caden Creech, Thomas Crawford, Riley Dahl, and Jesse Huntington. Congratulations, primary students. At the elementary school, we had over 40 participants in this year's Monroe Elementary Science Fair. Congratulations to 5th grader Mallory Dome and 6th grader Carly Watts, who were recognized as our winners. Also, this year's art show was terrific. Congratulations to 2nd grader Cameron Ferguson, 3rd grader Sally Aqua, 4th grader Avery Bagley, 5th grader Natalie Lane, and 6th grader Ella Payton, who were selected as our top artists. Their art will be framed and displayed in the elementary school office until their respective graduation dates. Finally, congratulations to this year's elementary spelling bee participants. Our top 2 spellers in the 3rd and 4th grade were runner-up Jax Vega and winner Jackson Currington. And in the 5th and 6th grade B, we had runner-up Allie Ware and winner Caitlin Carrito. At the junior high, students who carried a 4.0 GPA throughout the entire school year and were recipients of the Principal's Award are 7th graders Amelia Ball, Owen Daniels Day, Grace Kruckenberg, Keegan O'Hara, Eli Race, Cameron Reber, Jillian Routson, and Cassie Zhang. 8th grade recipients were Jaden Baxter, Addison Bivac, Brianne Bowers, Ava Butler, Asha Das, Sophie Frederick, Ava Hatemeyer, Jasmine Cower, William Limone, Jerry Lee, Christine Lee, Catherine Liu, Isabella McSwain, Jay Morris, Ellie Ott, Bryce Reynolds, Cindy Sem, Josiah Tarrin, Avriana Tudor, Dawson Watts, Jessica Waynes, and Hannah Witt. So congratulations to all those students. And finally, at the high school, Monroe High School was the only school in Butler County to participate in the Ohio Math League contest series. MHS students compiled a total score of 77 across 6 contests, counting the best 5 scores from each. 61 high schools in Ohio registered for the OML, and Monroe finished in the 52nd percentile statewide, a great performance the first year of participation. High-scoring students from the school were all juniors: Delaney Reenan, Peyton Hargrave, Maria McGuire, and Hillary Dunbar. This spring, the Safety Council of Southwest Ohio's Safe Communities program counted students wearing seatbelts at the Butler County high schools as they had done in the fall. Monroe High School was recognized as the winner, going from 88% in the fall to 93% in the spring, the only school in the 90 percentile. I also want to take this opportunity to remind all drivers in our community that wearing a seatbelt is one of the most effective ways to reduce auto fatalities, along with keeping distractions to a minimum and waiting to read and respond to your text messages until you've reached your destination. Let's keep Monroe safe and set a good example for our younger drivers in the community. And that's it.
Good, thank you. Lots of student achievement.
Lots. It's the spring. Lots of things going on.
That's it. All right, item 2.5, MEA.
Good evening. I'm Heather DeBoard, and just on behalf of our MEA, I wanted to thank members of our board, Robert and Holly, as well as our administration, for attending our yearly MEA dinner a couple of weekends ago. It was a very successful night. We had a great turnout and lots of wonderful prizes. And some of those prizes even featured some of our local businesses. So we just wanted to thank you. We also wanted to thank the board for another successful school year, and we look forward to August already. So thank you.
Thank you. The event was a lot of fun.
It was.
Even though I didn't win anything.
I did.
Everybody but me.
All right, moving on to section 3, Mr. Buskirk, recognition.
At this time, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Jessica Thornton, and she is going to talk about the Environmental Club and her students.
I want to thank the board for taking the time to hear and see what these remarkable students have done to make change for the positive here at Monroe. They have restarted and followed through on a new and improved recycling program at the junior-senior high level. Most of you know me, but for those that don't, I am Jessica Thornton, and I come to you today as a teacher, a club advisor, and as a parent. Let me first tell you how the Environmental Club started this year. About 2.5 years ago, my daughter Addison, please stand, who is currently in the 7th grade, noticed unnecessary waste occurring in the elementary school cafeteria. At that time, she decided to use her voice to make a change by writing to Kathy Demers, who was the superintendent at that time. From there, she sparked a change within the district and within our family to reduce waste. Her passion made me realize how important it was to develop an environmental club at the high school level. Moving forward, the club will be open to both junior and senior high students for the next academic year. Before I introduce you to the presenters of the Environmental Club, I would like to thank all those who have made this possible by supporting our initiative and the club. Mrs. Ann Flagg from the Ohio Butler County Recycling and Solid Waste came in and met with Addison and the club to inform them what is recyclable and what is not. The next person I would like to thank is Levi Grimm, who founded and is the director of G Foods. Levi came and spoke with Addison and then to the club and presented how he started a no waste campaign at Ross High School while he was a student. Additionally, I would like to thank Mrs. Sam Fry, Mr. Tom Prohaska, Mr. Logan Stanger, and Mr. Steve Moon, as they all helped promote and support the club all the way through. The club would like to thank Mrs. Janine Alexander and the students from her Interact Club and her Spanish Club for their volunteer hours to help with the recycling food audit. Without their additional manpower, this project would not have gone as smoothly as it did. And last but not least, I personally would like to thank my students and their parents. Students, please stand as I call your name. Not everybody could be here. Some are studying for exams. Some have other requirements such as work. David Bassford, Chi-Chi Wu, Aaron Regal, Olivia Valera, Ethan Albin, Sarah Perkins, Mason Fugate, Ella Frank, Jocelyn Lovell, Taylor Thomas, Camilla Ellis, Elizabeth Downey, Landon Hogan, Connor Thornton, Lila Lovell, Cash Hooper, Kirsten Satterfield, Hazel Ray Carpenter, Felicity Rollins, Nytyra Sims, Pepper Fraumeyer, Hillary Dunbar, Alyssa Wagner, and Braylon Lee. Without them, this project would not have taken place. It is through their hard work and dedication of each one of these spectacular students that real change is happening. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Camilla Ellis, Chi-Chi Wu, Taylor Thomas, and Ella Frank, who will be presenting the data they collected and their plans to move forward with recycling within the entire district and ways to help our community by starting a food share table program.
So, this is our recycling material at Monroe. My name is Ella Frank, and I'm the music board. My name is Taylor Thomas, and I'm the vice president. And I'm Camilla Rose, and I'm the secretary. Our first, our goal. We noticed that the environmental club students wanted to educate the student body on more terms regarding recycling. Our student body wanted to know what is recyclable and what is not, and what they can do about it. goal was to gather data regarding how much students recycle at Monroe High School and junior high, and to implement a more effective recycling program as well as future programs. Our first step was to further educate ourselves in order to be qualified to educate the student body. Our first step was to meet with guest speaker Ann Black, the director of Butler County's Recycling and Solid Waste System. Now, with her, she allowed us to have a plan for growing out this recycling program. Today, we met with guest speaker Levi Graham, Butler County's coordinator of reuse. Reuse is essentially a nonprofit organization that allows them to work with restaurants and local businesses in order to take their unwanted food and to donate them to the local food. They supported our caregiving initiative, which essentially is when we take our cafeteria food that is just unwanted and untouched food from the cafeteria and donate them to local food banks. And essentially, this will cut down on food waste in the environment and it would prevent them from going into the landfill. We then took a trip to Rumpke's recycling facility where we learned the ins and outs of recycling and what it would look like when you actually recycle. So here are just a few of the photos we took at Rumpke's recycling plant. And as you can see, they had a lot of machinery and stuff, and it would cause lots of loud noise, so we all wore headphones. And this one guy was speaking to a microphone, and we were doing directly in our ears, so we could probably hear what she was saying. And one of the most important things we learned there is that while a lot of plastic containers and stuff do have a little recycling logo on it, that does not mean necessarily that it is recyclable. So you do have to do a little bit of research on what the website to know yes for sure what they use and what they don't. Our second step was student body education. Obviously, it took a lot to educate ourselves, so we needed to find a fun and effective way to educate our students as well. We did this by posting tips and facts about recycling on our public Pennsylvania movement, as well as the recommended TVs and social media platforms. We also had a few of our members go on a weekly common dog show to talk about our community. In the top right was an example of one of the tips that was posted on the recommended TVs and the bulletin, and in the bottom left is a picture from one of the weekly common dog shows where Bella, Taylor, and another member of our Celesta got to talk about the community. The first step was our recycling survey. So after we educated our student body and the members, we really wanted to understand what our students thought about recycling and what they did at home about recycling and at school. So the environmental club made and sent out a recycling survey to all of Monroe High School staff and students. And in total we got 350 responses. And our main question was, what keeps you from recycling at school? And the two reasons were that it was inconvenient and that there was just a lack of knowledge about it, which for the apple juice cups, the chocolate milk, and the banana. Here are our three pictures that we got from you about it. In the top right are a few of our fabulous questionnaire people, including me. And like giving students information and facts about how to recycle and giving out prizes. In the bottom right is a picture of our new trash and recycling cans. These pictures are from the office. And they include what you can and cannot recycle on the front. And these were generously donated by Ann Clay. In the bottom left is one of our new additional recycling bins outside the cafeteria, also donated by Ann Clay. And that was the collection of water bottles and milk cartons over just 2 days of our audit. And in the top left is an example of one of our food share bins. And I guess we just had all the names in it.
I'm going to start with rolling out the recycling bin. So when we gathered our data from the food audit, we actually got the new recycling bins that were donated to us, and then we just had volunteers for 2 days, just make sure to monitor those recycling bins, make sure that no contamination is present. And already the education that we were giving to the students proved to be effective. There was no, they instantly knew what to recycle, and there was contamination from the contamination that was produced from all the
I feel one of the most important parts about this food audit was to truly see how it impacts us. So, once we again learned a lot about the food audit that we participated in. I think it was a good thing to do as a school because everyone learned about the recycling and what we can continue to do. Knowing what is recyclable makes me more likely to recycle because I now know I'm not messing up and the recycling is the wrong place. During this audit, we also had questions and prizes with the sharing. Another student said I was able to go to being more educated during the food audit, which taught me what I can and cannot recycle, as well as allowing people to help the environment. This project is now out.
I think right now we've been doing pretty well with recycling bins. Our environmental phone numbers have been periodically checking the recycling bins in our cafeterias, checking to see if there's any contamination. And we're also in contact with the custodians. They let us know in case there is any contamination outside or in the recycling bins indoors. We've only had one case so far where we're recycling used pieces of oxygen, but we already got that sorted out. We're going to help prevent that in the future with more education and getting out to the students.
you.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say that was a well-prepared, well-spoken presentation, so very well done, ladies. Very well.
Yeah, I want to second what Dave had said. You guys did a wonderful presentation, and just getting up and speaking is a feat in itself, and that was really good information. The slideshows were great. You had a plan, you had a goal, you got future goals. It's good stuff, good stuff.
Hi, my name's Ann Flagg. I'm with Butler County Recycling, and I just want to applaud the students from the Environmental Club. I want to applaud Jessica Thornton as their leader. I think these students have exemplified a textbook example of how to get it done. They took the initiative on their own to make this happen for the school, for their organization. They were receptive to my messages and implemented several of my suggestions, which doesn't always happen. So I applaud them for being leaders and learners, and then to share this with their peers, I think is really powerful. We can talk a lot as adults to students and tell them what we think should happen, but they took the lead on this and they made it happen. So I'm so proud of them. So pleased to invest county dollars in this institution and in the school district here. We did support with grants some of the infrastructure that's in place that you see throughout the school, and just really want to help continue the strength of this program. If there's anything else I can do to help support your students and to support you all as a board, I hope you'll call on me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to section 4, comments from the public, and seeing none.
There are none.
All right, we will move on to section 5. Mr. Buskirk, presentations.
All right, we are going to start with Mr. Silverman and Hogan Marshall. They are going to talk about the National Athletic Trainer Association Safe Sport School Award. And while he's walking up here, make sure everybody wishes Mr. Silverman a happy birthday today.
Yes.
Are you going to lead for the singing?
Thanks for the
party.
Mr. Carpenter's going to start there.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, really bad.
Yeah, we planned this date just around your birthday, so wanted you to come here for your birthday.
I would have brought cake. Well, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to present this tonight. So, you know, in anything that we do here in the school district, before any lessons are taught in the classroom, before any games are won on the athletic field, the first and most important thing that we do is we keep our kids safe. That's our priority number one. And one of the ways that we do that is through our incredible partnership with Premier Health. Hogan Marshall, our athletic trainer, does a phenomenal job in his role from the sports medicine end, but also from a tangible way of showing that to the community. There is a program out there called the Safe Sports School Award, and that's sponsored by the National Athletic Trainers Association. And we've participated in this for several cycles now. They're 3-year awards, or terms of the award, and we've done this a few other times since I've been here at Monroe. Stephanie Anderson spearheaded it for us in the past, and a few months ago, Hogan came back in and said, hey, I want to renew and apply for this again, and so he did a lot of legwork to make sure that process was in place. So when we put our application in, really we got that stamp of approval, but hey, what we're doing are the right things, and we're doing the necessary steps to keep our kids safe, both on and off the playing field. So without any further explanation from myself, I'm going to turn it over to Hogan and let him explain a little bit about the Safe Sports School Award.
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. Thank you, board, for having me tonight. So really quickly, I just want to go over this award and what it means and what all goes into putting our district in a position to earn such an award and keep our kids safe in athletics. So just want to start with the criteria for the award. So to be awarded the Safe Sports School Award from the NATA, you have to meet a set of criteria that they lay out. So some of those: creating a positive athletic healthcare administrative system, providing and coordinating pre-participation physicals, promoting safe and appropriate practice in competition facilities, a plan for proper fit and maintenance of the athletic equipment, providing a permanent, appropriately equipped area to evaluate and treat injured athletes, developing injury and illness prevention strategies, including protocols for environmental conditions, providing and facilitating injury interventions, creating and rehearsing venue-specific emergency action plans, providing or facilitating psychosocial consultation and nutritional counseling and education, and just making sure that athletes and parents are educated on benefits and risks of participation in sports. So there's a first and a second team for this award. First team being meeting all recommended and required elements, second team being only meeting those elements that are required. So here at Monroe, we are first team, so we meet all requirements for this award. And as Eric mentioned, it's a 3-year period, so we'll carry this designation through 2025, and at that point we can reapply for the award. So something really cool about this as well, we did receive a grant for the application fee, and that came from the Great Lakes Athletic Trainers Association. So that includes districts 4 and 11 of the National Athletic Trainers Association, which is Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So they give out 40 grants a year to secondary schools who want to apply for this award, and we were one of those 40 this year that got a grant. So it was no charge to us to apply for this award, which is great. So we appreciate that from them. And then here at the end, just some additional information. If you'd like to learn more about the NATA, about athletic trainers, and about what we do, go ahead and visit the NATA website. There's also a story up on the school website about this award if you'd like to learn more about it, or follow our sports medicine Twitter page. I'll be posting some things on there. And lastly, I just want to thank some people that had a hand in this. So as Eric mentioned, the partnership between Premier Health, Atrium Medical Center, and Monroe. It's a long-standing partnership that's been going on for many years now, and I think that's a big reason why we're able to provide such a great program for our athletes and have all those safety protocols in place. Of course, administration and you, the school board, so thank you for having me again, and all that you do for our kids. Of course, Athletic Director Eric Silverman, we work together on this application, and he really runs a great program here, great athletic program here at Monroe, so it wouldn't be possible without him. And he also mentioned Stephanie, our former athletic trainer. She really laid the groundwork for this, and we won it under her guidance in the past, so thanks to her as well, and to our team physician, Dr. Davis, with Premier Health. He's part of our healthcare team here as well, so thank you to him. And again, coaches, staff, parents, athletes, they're all part of the team too, and they all do a wonderful job keeping themselves safe, keeping their children safe, and really fostering an environment here at Monroe of safety and great competition. So, and to the community, thank you. So thank you for having me. That's all I have. So, thank you.
Hey, thanks for making me feel as older than I am, because I was a coach of Hogan's baseball at 10U, so now you're up here presenting, so now I feel really old, so thank you.
Sorry, Dave, my bad.
Would it be possible to get a picture? With
Yes,
the
so
board?
we want to get one with the environmental club, and we want to get one with you guys as well. So you will do this one here with the banner? Is that what it is?
be great.
And then we'll have the environmental club come up as well for a picture. Yep.
Go ahead.
Debbie, hold up your end just a little bit higher there.
Did you get one?
I'll get it from Cinda.
Okay.
Thanks. Great, thank you.
Happy birthday, Eric. Yeah.
You guys want to come on up? You're wearing a green shirt or not? Come on up.
many members are there? I know you read them off. How many total?
There was, I think, 26.
26? All right. We'll have you guys poke it right in here. Fine.
Cash, you're not. Here, stand right there with me. Yeah, we gotta go. Come on, come on in. Right here. Come on.
Take a picture first, that's fine.
All right, everybody here on three. Oh, get up there, Addison. 1, 2, 3. Hold on, no move.
Thank you. One more. All right, thank you guys. Good job. Great work.
You guys don't want to stay for the rest? Just kidding. You guys are more than welcome to go. All right. Moving on to the next presentation.
Next up, Jody Long.
Hello, how is everyone tonight?
Well, how are you?
Okay, so I'm going to present to you the staff members that was on the math committee, their recommendation for our adoption. So this will be adopted this year, implemented next year. Okay. So, go ahead and scroll down to the next one. Thank you. So I wanted to start, before we dive into the math, I just quickly wanted to give you a little bit of information about something that's available to all the schools in the state of Ohio now, is Ohio Materials Matter. And what this does is it gives some guidance for curriculum adoptions, because there are a gazillion programs that you can adopt out there. So this is something that gives us a framework and gives you some curriculum guides and some research on the different programs that are out there. Fortunately, a few years ago when we did our K-5 ELA adoption, we used Ed Reports and we also used the Curriculum Matters. It wasn't Ohio Matters, but Curriculum Matters guides. And they really did help us through the whole process. So I just wanted you to know that those are out there. And in a little bit later in the slideshow, you'll see just screenshots from the Ed Reports, which gives you kind of, like I said, the research around the programs and how effective they are. The next slide, then, I just mentioned Ed Reports. I just want to quickly show the three things that they look at, the Ed Reports. Each of the programs that they review, they go through each of these, they call them gateways. And you have to, like, focus and coherence. You have to pass everything in focus and coherence to even move on to the next gateway. So then they give them a color, green, yellow, red, in all those areas, and they let you know their effectiveness through their research. And then that helps narrow down what programs to preview. So we can say we're only going to look at all of the green programs. So, next slide, please. Thank you. So now, we will dive into our math curriculum committee members. This is a list of everyone who is on the committee, everyone from each grade level, K to 12, and then actually Paul Ferryman he was the contact person for high school, but I have to say the entire math department was in the meetings when we met. So it was all of the high school math teachers were there. So those are our committee members. And then I want to give you a little bit of information about our selection process, because it was a little bit different this year. You can go to the next slide. Was a little bit different at each of the grade bands. So K-5, I don't know if we use Ames Web benchmarking data to guide how our Tier 1, what our Tier 1 instruction, how effective it is. And it was actually indicating that our current math program is working well. And so we've been using that for 6 years. So it was a pretty quick process because the teachers just wanted to look at samples of the newer version of Envisions and see whether it suited what they were looking for. So that's actually what we did, so it was quick for K to 5, okay? So then you move on to grades 6 to 8. So in grades 6 to 8, 6th grade, a little bit of history, 6th grade was using the same program as 7th and 8th. They were not using the elementary Envisions. They were still showing, their data was still showing that their Tier 1 instruction, which is their core instruction, was doing what it needed to be doing. But after talking to the teachers, they felt as though they were supplementing a lot of their instruction with other things, not just the program, which that's normal to do some supplemental things, but not, you don't want to have to be doing that daily in your lesson planning. And then 7th and 8th grade data shows that we were definitely in need of new instructional materials. 7th and 8th grade, especially 8th grade, they also use a method called the grid method. So we want to we wanted to be able to look at materials where we could incorporate the grid method into, with our Tier 1 instructional materials. So they researched, I kind of skipped down, but they researched some different programs from Ed Reports and requested a couple of samples, and then we went from there, and I'll move on after I go through what 9 to 12 did. So 9 to 12, our high school math EOC scores are definitely showing that we're still not hitting the mark with our Tier 1 instruction. And they also looked at different programs. I shared with them Ed Reports, how to read the Ed Reports, and then they requested a couple of different samples of programs. They had one more step, though. After narrowing it down to 2, we had webinars for them. So they wanted to look a little bit further into some of the materials and what was offered. So we did that. We had 2 webinars with grades 9 through 12. You're fine. One other thing that I want to say was, even though we're adopting aligned instructional materials and newer materials, there are still some instructional practices that we need to work on. This is not the be-all, end-all, but we do need to have good, sound instructional materials. But we still have some standards alignment and some instructional practices that we need to be working on. Okay. So math committee recommendations. K-8 they're recommending Envisions Mathematics 2020 Common Core. Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 are recommending Reveal Math. That is a McGraw-Hill product. Then the statistics class, their textbook, Elementary Statistics, and that's a 22 copyright. Pre-Calc, the Demana Pre-Calculus, you see the big title up there, the 10th edition of that, which is a 2019 copyright, and then AP Calc, which is a 2020 copyright. So those are their recommendations. And then on the next page, I wanted to just share, this is just 2 screenshots from the Ed Reports that I was talking about. You can see where alignment and usability, they both meet expectations with Envisions and with Reveal Math. There are tons and tons of pages if you start looking at detail on what that meet what they're judged on and what those mean. And I know that rigor and I can't remember what goes with rigor, but rigor is under alignment. I had 3 categories. The second category is under alignment there. So on both those. So those are both, they meet all the expectations, scored high in all the categories. You can go to the next slide, please. Then I just quickly wanted to just give you a couple of highlights of the 2 programs, that, the Envision Math Common Core. It provides the teachers the tools that they need to help students develop strong understanding of math concepts. They utilize a lot of problem-based learning, a lot of visuals, and a lot of interactive lessons that present practical and real-life problems for kids. So that's a positive to the Envisions. And then Reveal Math for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 use evidence-based practices. They offer both low and high tech, so not everything has to be techy. They promote mathematical discourse and collaboration and positive student mindset, because we all know that's very important with math, because a lot of kids feel like they're not good at math, and so then they just, are uncomfortable and don't want to try. Also provide a variety of options for assessments. Another piece of this, of Reveal Math, is ALEX. It's an intuitive program, and it has a continuous cycle of assessing, learning, and then reinforcing. And that's something they do on the computer. And the teachers then can use that data also to pull small groups to instruct if they need to. They have a variety of options for assessments, diagnostic, formative, and summative, and then it also has resource for Spanish speakers, which is important for us at our high school. Now down to the nitty-gritty, which you guys are interested in. So the costs for the adoption, the K-6 envisions, that's a 6-year print digital bundle. We talked about the 6-year bundles and licenses when we did the study sync earlier in the year. That total is $203,557.24. Grades 7, 8, and accelerated envisions, a 6-year digital only, $38,730. High school reveal, that includes the 3 courses and plus the ALEX. That's a 6-year print, digital, and ALEX altogether, $101,206.25. And then the stats, these are a little bit different. So for the stats class, we're doing 30 print. Those are the typical hardback big books that you have. So we'll do a class set of those and then 6-year digital access for them. That's $6,719.10. And then pre-calc, we'll do a set of 40 print books and a 6-year digital access, $9,178.80. And then AP Calc is only a 1-year license right now because we feel like we need to really get that class established. Our numbers go up and down with that class, so we want to make sure that's established before we would purchase something that's going to last a few years. So I think, unless you have questions for me, that's the information about the math adoption. And then we'll put it on the next board agenda for approval.
I just have 2 quick questions. Number one, do you think based upon the committee that you had, will this adoption, is everyone confident this will get us to the levels that we need to get to where we want to get to?
Yes, they are, especially K through 5. We've seen, our results are really good. In our formative data, our benchmarking data, our Ohio State test scores are good too, but that's a different test. It's good to use our Ames Web data to help us determine how our Tier 1 instruction is looking. And there, for example, 5th grade, I think. 5th grade was 92% in the green, and you should have 80% of your students following in the green of your triangles. I'm getting a little technical, but so yes. Okay. Yes, and like I said, there are still some other things that need to be worked on at some of the other grade levels that will help us get to where we need to get to. Yeah. Okay.
And the second question is regarding the cost. I see it's a 6-year, so it's a 6-year adoption, correct? Mm-hmm. Is that price, I just want to make sure I'm clear, the 203 at the top, that is for
6 years.
The 6 years.
That covers the entire 6 years. So if you break it down, so I just broke it down. It's $35,000 a year for grades K to 6. So and then if you break it down even further, it's $5,000 a grade, approximately $5,000 a grade level per year. Yeah.
And a 6-year adoption, will that get us? What if you guys aren't happy with the 6 years?
We would just finish out the adoption. We just have to supplement what we need to.
Okay, but you're pretty confident we would be happy.
Yes, yeah. And as a matter of fact, 6, 7, and 8, one of their other decisions, the reasons they decided to go with Envision was because they had heard good things from the elementary about using Envision, so that was the other reason.
That was the only questions I had.
Is the cost consistent with what we've seen with previous adoptions?
Yeah, and it's been a while since we've done a K-12 adoption, because we've started to try to split the adoptions K-6, 7, 12, so that we don't get this big, huge amount.
But as far as the
But yes,
per
yeah.
grade, per year
Yeah.
number is relatively close to what
Yeah,
we
with
used to
that, I
pay.
mean, obviously, you have to include some inflation. Like, it's been 6 years since we've done this big of an adoption, so.
Okay. And I'm questioning when it says set of 30 prints and 40 prints, is that, I guess I'm struggling with, is it too much or is it not enough if it's good for 6 years? Like, how did you guys come up with the 30 and 40 and
Based on what
15?
their class
The class
sizes are
sizes and
usually
that?
like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And two, you also have to remember that, for example, just take stats, for example, that's right now their estimated number of kids. We may have to order 2 more books, or, I mean.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
'cause
so it's
those are not totally, those
Not
schedules
set in
won't be
stone.
set till we come back to school next year.
Okay, okay.
We have good, I mean, we have estimates. but-
Estimated, okay.
Yeah.
And that
I'm
would
going to ask
actually
you
lead.
to keep the
Go ahead.
board informed as to how we're improving with adoption. So we know where we're going.
Yeah. And actually, Debbie's question actually leads me, I see that the AP Calc is just 1 year. If we see that the course is gaining traction, because I know
Then we could look at extending it.
adding
Mhm.
more books
Yeah.
if needed and
Yeah.
actually adding on to it.
Because
Okay.
we could do a 3-year, we could do a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, yeah.
And add on to it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that, we can do that. Tom, do you mean, I have a question back for you. Do you mean like a cycle, like what the textbook adoption cycle is?
Yeah,
Okay.
and how the students are doing with this.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we know that we're progressing, we aren't overnight, but are we progressing the way we should?
Okay.
Is that reported yearly or quarterly, or how often are you I mean, you're tracking students all year long, obviously, but when do you guys set your benchmark for the growth?
So
or
buildings look fall, winter, and spring.
decline? Okay.
Now, that's a little bit different at the high school. We would need to determine what we would want to report to you guys, but all the other buildings have a benchmarking system, so they do fall, winter, and spring benchmarks.
Great.
Okay.
I just want to remind you that all the textbooks, it is just one, it's a big tool, but it's just a piece of the puzzle. Really, it comes down to that teacher in that classroom and the instruction. If it was, the number one priority was just the textbook, and we could throw anybody in there. We all know that is not the
That is
case.
true.
So the textbook is a resource. Teachers supplement all the time with their own stuff, but Jody and the committee has done a really good job of really going, like she said, there's just tons and tons of stuff out there, and although they do copy off each other a lot, I think they've done a good job of narrowing it down to fit our needs, so.
Okay.
So I do have one more thing, one more minute. Later on in the agenda, I just want to explain something, so when you guys see this, you'll know. Later on in the agenda, you're going to see a 1-year science extension, if you haven't already seen that on your agenda for you guys to vote on. So what that is it's not a new adoption, but partially because of the pandemic, everything got squeezed. We didn't do some adoptions for a while. That adoption has run out. So we needed to extend it. So next year, Science 712 that's what we'll be up here presenting to you.
Okay.
So that's just, that extension is to get us through 7 to 12
For this.
next year.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to know that.
All right. As always, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you.
informative,
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on to Section 6, Treasurer's Business. Mrs. Cahall, you're up.
Okay, I'm asking the board to approve the minutes from April 11th and April 25th. The meetings on April 11th and 25th.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
I shared with you a financial report, and I'm not going to focus on that tonight because I'm going to talk more about the forecast, but, we are pretty much where we thought we would be at this time of year. And I do share with you how we compare to last year, and our receipts have gone up. I mean, there's a little bit of timing there, so it looks like they've gone up a lot more than last year, but they haven't. It's just because of last year we received tax receipts a lot later than we did this year. This year's how you usually receive them, but because of all that, those increase in values of homes, they didn't get all that work done to get it to us till late, our property tax revenue. So it's, but now I think we're going to, the important thing is I think we are going to end the year with, without deficit spending, that we should have, our revenue will exceed our expenses, and I'm glad for that. But the biggest thing is, we look at salary and benefits, and at this point, we're $900,000 more this year than we were last year at this time. So that's the thing that, does keep going up, because that's what we all are, people here, so staff. And it's also purchase services, because we have our custodians and our bus drivers. So, when you've been, now that you're on the school board, you know that our expenses are pretty much people, as a rule. So that's all I'd like to say about the monthly report.
Okay.
I need to call.
We'll make a motion.
Yes.
May I have a motion, please? Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. All right.
Call the roll.
Yes, Ms. Kale, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, next I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund report for April 30th, 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. All right.
Okay. And all the money is where it should be at this.
Good.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.4.
Yeah, and I'm asking the board to approve a meal price increase effective July 1st, 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
And we have not raised meal prices since 2018. And one thing I do need to explain is that you can only raise prices 10 cents each year. And last 2 years, schools lunches were free, so we weren't thinking about price too much. And really, we would have liked to have raised them 20 cents this year. So we may do 10 cents this year and 10 cents next year. But I do, since we're in a board meeting and maybe people are watching, that lunches will not be free next year. I mean, they will be free for free and reduced students, but students will be back to paying for lunches next year. So.
Have we we've communicated that clearly to parents, and we'll continue to over the summer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.5.
I'm asking the board to approve the 5-year forecast for submission by May 31st.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd just like to say a few words. Okay, make it bigger. Okay, make it a lot bigger, actually. and here, I'll tell you, I want to look at this. apologize for not giving you all. Okay, so let's talk about revenue, and you're not going to be surprised because the Rockies Express, the loss of $900,000 will certainly play a role in our 5-year forecast. And that's in this line right here. And they did pay $400,000, half, but they paid it late. So we won't get that till 23. We got something in the fall, but we didn't get what they should have paid in the spring. I mean, they should have paid $900,000 in the spring, but they paid $400,000 and it came after the deadline, so we won't get it till next year. So that kind of makes it kind of goofy a little bit. But okay, so this is when the $900,000 is gone. Hopefully, the tax commissioner will think about it long and hard and not give 45%. I mean, they're one of the biggest taxpayers in our district, and that's in the assumptions. You can see what our biggest taxpayers are, and Rocky is one of them. And then I think I've said this before, so you probably already know that I can't increase the foundation. This is a foundation line until we know more, because we've always been taught you can keep it the same. It won't go down, but it did go down in 2021. It did go down first time, 20 years I've seen it go down. But anyway, it's not. That was during, when they were afraid the tax receipts with the state weren't going to cover, their budget, so they had to reduce funding then. But anyway, so we're counted the same, but as you will see in our expenses, we definitely could use more money and to be off the cap. So this is 1 year off the cap, this is 2 years off the cap, but we have 4 more years to go, because it's 16, 16, 16, to finally get us up to funding. And so this will be decided in 2024, not, 22 set, 23 set, and then 2024, we will work with our legislators to keep us going on this road. So that definitely affects our revenue here. So let's go down to expenses, and that means there. Okay, sorry. These are expenses, and the top 2 are salaries and benefits, and then there's contracts with Peterman and Sodexo in that line too, and we don't really know what's going to happen, this far out with them. And I don't think we've gotten our contracts yet for next year. Next year with Peterman and anyway, Peterman said we're not going to change. It's just on a 3% increase right now. So, but when they do need to renegotiate, it could change. How because of inflation and that kind of thing. But so. That's what those are. So one other thing is, this is supplies. This line here is supplies. And I did not, okay, we were talking about textbook adoption, and so we adopted ELA this year, and we're buying it this year. And I think it's $150,000. It wasn't as much as we thought. But because we're so late with math, it takes a long time to try to figure out which textbooks, with everybody getting together and getting the quotes, then I think by law you have to have the, explain it to the board, and then the next board meeting you have to have it approved. Well, we got so late, math adoption is going to go into next year, and then we will also have science adoption planning on next year. And so that's $700,000 together, because each is like $350,000. So, but we just got word today how much it was going to be, and so I don't have that 700 in the supplies right there, 1.4. I don't have it in there yet. In September, I will have it in there. But how we do these is all the administrators get together, leadership gets together all in March and April and decides on their budgets. And that's what these numbers are for purchase services and supplies and capital outlay. And we didn't, in March we didn't have these textbook numbers. So I'll be revising that, and we'll see what it does. Okay, so then, so if you go down some more, so at this point, we know we're going to not deficit spend this year, and I'm hoping, I mean, we have a new contract with our staff, and there's different things in that contract, and I want to see how that, I'm just guessing at some of those expenses. So, you know, hopefully we'll do better than this next year, and hopefully the cap will get the, they'll continue getting us off the cap, and we'll push that deficit off. So I definitely will know more about in September too about our expenses. So, and then we'll know more in starting after next year about our foundation and see what that will do. So can you put the PowerPoint presentation on? Or, oh yeah. Okay. So one other thing is, so we did hire staff. So the salary and benefits has this much more because we had 2 full-time subs that we're going to pay out of the general fund now because we're going to use ESSER for something else. And then we have the 4 new staff that were approved the last board meeting. Okay, and then go down, and then in 24, ESSER 2 will be ending. And these were the things we paid ESSER 2, and I estimated $168,000 will be put back in the general fund for the lunch monitors, attendance officer, which we haven't hired yet, but so it's a guessing that, and then all these other subs for PD and that kind of thing. So I put that back in. Okay, and then 25, then we have 4 that we're hiring in ESSER 3 right now, and they will be coming back in the general fund in 25. And so this is, I'm guessing on that number, but I think, you know, it's not too out of line. So I put that's what increased our expenses and our salaries in those 23, 24, 25. And what I did want to point out, you know, this is a history, and you can see like revenue went up here because we're capped. That's basically why it's a revenue issue there. But our expenses are going up one line, you know how it's, and eventually it's going to meet. This is 21. And you know, we kind of expanded because of our ESSER grants, and then they're going to go away. So they're going to go back up, and you know, they're going to go in that blue line. And so, you know, depending on the cap and depending on Rocky, we're going to definitely cross. We're going to deficit spend. So, you know, we can make decisions at that time, but we're heading in that direction. So, and you can see from history, that looks like where we're going, our journey. Our journey's going to get there, but, so that's, and then, you know, you're guessing on inflation too, fuel, inflation, and everything's, you know, so, and you keep hearing, you know, you try to use the best judgment you can, but until you really start seeing what's going on, and I haven't seen it in invoices yet. In fact, you know what? With Duke, we've been paying $2 a month for Duke Electric because their technology system is not working right, and so we usually pay $25,000 a month in electricity, and we've been paying $2. So, I know. I said, you guys tell me exactly when that comes in.
Get on your grid? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure I have money in the bank when like 100,000 comes in. but you know, but anyway, you know what I'm saying about inflation. We've seen it in our lives, but I haven't really seen it that much in the last few months here at the school. So I don't know how it's all going to happen, what's going to happen over the summer and September. But you know, I'll keep my eye on it.
It'll just hit all at once.
Pardon me?
It'll just hit all
at once. It'll just blow it out of the water. No. So all we can do is keep our eyes on it and do the best we can. And so, all right, that's all I have for.
All right. Well, it's also helpful that, because me and you have had this conversation before, it's also very helpful that you are conservative when it comes to your forecasting.
Yeah.
So you've always had that ability to show that we are going to have a deficit spending, but because of conservative as you are, we don't actually hit that conservative. So I think, but again, we do have a lot of unknowns that we don't know as of yet, and those are the 2 unknowns that are pretty big unknowns. So once we have a little handle on what those actually are, we'll be able to plan accordingly. Because our new contract is more than the one before too with our
with all our staff. So it is more. We went up, and, you know, so this is the raises we had, and maybe a few additional people. Now we had more people, and we have a higher rate. So, but go, one of the quick reference report. Can you find that? Oh, okay. This is where it wasn't conservative. I mean, I projected 1.1 million, 2 million for taxes, and it's 10.6. So I'm not always, you know, I try to be conservative, but, oh, of course, that's a Rocky thing, that 3.35. I mean, it hasn't really hit there yet. But I'm definitely conservative. We're definitely conservative down there. We
Yes.
came in a lot lower. But you see how there's times that I get surprised. I mean, you know, people file tax complaints, I don't know. I just beat there. And that would have been on target had it not been for Rocky, or probably more. So that would have been conservative, but just, that's examples. Things happen, you know. Okay.
Key to the
So,
whole thing is get uncapped.
That, well, if we were uncapped, then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. We would, I mean,
Yeah.
we would be pretty, we'd be pretty,
Pretty healthy.
sit pretty.
Very
We'd
healthy.
be very healthy.
it's a revenue issue. It's a
Yes.
revenue issue. And you look at our comparison of our expenses right now, and we're always lower than our similar schools in staff and costs and all that. So, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I realize, if you go to 24, is that when we're losing some abatements out of the,
No, not till really 29. There may be one in 25. Yeah, and they've estimated something. I don't have it on here yet until, because it could change, but,
Yeah, the majority, there's, I think, one or two maybe in 25, but the majority of them are 29 and 30, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, correct?
that's correct. And then new subdivisions will bring in more, bring in some more property tax. I mean, at the 20 mil, we'll get more.
You mean all
of them.
those
So,
new homes will have no kids, according to the
yeah,
state?
we would hope no kids. We can just put that sign up there and say, no kids allowed.
No,
Yes.
Just
We're kidding.
taxpayers.
Yeah, that's, at least that's what the state thinks.
Yes. So, all right.
All right, thank you, Holly. Anyone else have any questions for Holly on the 5-year forecast? Okay. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
aye,
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. All right, thank you, Holly, for your treasurer's report. And moving on to section 7, superintendent's update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grant. I just have a few quick things here. It is our last week of school with students. Thursday is the final day. I do want to remind parents and everyone that that final day of school on Thursday is early release. We hit that with social media. I know the principals have put it out in their newsletters and communication to parents, but just can't say it enough so people know. I think it's an annual thing. It's not anything new. It's just a reminder to parents. But high school, junior high will be dismissing at 12:15, elementary 1:15, and the primary at 1:35. So that last day of school, they all get to go home a little bit early. I do want to commend the high school staff and really the entire staff. Graduation was a tremendous success. Here Friday, under the lights, outside. I've been through a number of graduations at different venues, and I think, my personal opinion is that is a lot more special when they can do it at their home stadium. We've got a beautiful facility. Everything worked out. The anxiety of looking at the weather the 2 weeks out with the high school staff was well worth it. As long as the community continues to be patient with us, at some point it will rain and we'll have to postpone or push it back or do something. So, but you know, everything worked out great. It was a beautiful night, great success. I do want to turn it over to Mr. Prohaska. He's got a few special thank yous for graduation.
I just wanted the school board to recognize these individuals. I'll go pretty quick. Luke Brinkman in band, incredible. Brendan Longyear in the choir, just amazing. Cinda Pelfrey was on the piano. Eric Silverman did a lot with setup and helping out with Rosie's. Chad Allen, Caleb Mitchner were helping out right after school setting up. A lot of you might know that Ed Beck had the wheelchairs from Mount Pleasant and had baseball boys helping out, getting people into the stadium. A lot of people don't know this one. Bob Mullins had football players in at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. They got all the chairs off the field, got them stacked. The company saved us about $500 that we didn't have to do that, and we took care of that after graduation. Matt Baltzer and his engineering students built the stage, which was incredible, which we now have in storage, and we're going to save a lot of money in the future. Students Alyssa Wagner, Alex Bemis, Brady Hagan, Logan Shaper, Carson Gomey, Adam Duff, and Grant Martinez were all on that project to build that. We started that project right after Christmas, and pretty impressive. Tara Cusai, Sam Sodi, Jessica Thornton, decorations. Shoot Lyndon Cusai, he's a freshman. He's out there making sure that the lines were, all the chairs were lined up properly because he knew I was fixated on that. Sam Fry, if you've seen the senior slideshow, she did incredible work on that with other students. Pam Miller puts together a fantastic program. Dara LaForest and all the work she did to make sure our seniors were where they were. John Creamer in the senior assembly. I know many of you did not see that, but we've just started an incredible tradition that we're looking forward to again next year. Jesse and Leslie as our readers, incredible work. Monroe Athletic Boosters helping out with concessions. Jim Connie, Melissa Wolf as our ushers helping us out there. Chloe Wright and Lily Hackney were in the gym. A lot of you guys didn't see, we have the kids staging in there. I mean, there's a lot of that goes behind the scenes. You guys all coming to the event, incredible. Carrie Long, Jamie Wary helping out with getting things set up. Devin Norsworthy with decorating. Brad Jackson, Jill Wyckoff in the Monroe Police Department. Brian Butts, custodial staff and majors, the grounds and the stadium. Logan helped out in organizing the staff as the kids came in, cheering them on and helping out with getting that organized. And shoot, I hope I'm not missing anybody, but we had a lot of people involved in making that a very, very special event. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Takes a team. What's that? Oh, yeah. So thank you.
Yes, thank you to everybody. It was, hey, Tom, real quick. I think I had a little conversation with you before the meeting, and I just want to make it public. I mean, the 2020 graduation, to me, just because of the situation with the pandemic, that was always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Only because it was a private graduation.
Yeah.
And that always just holds a special place in my heart. But this 2022 graduation, hands down, my favorite. So hats off to everybody. It was a great event.
Yeah, it was.
Fireworks were a great surprise.
It was nice ending.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just again want to thank all the staff. I've always equated planning graduation, it's sort of like planning a wedding reception. And oh, by the way, you still have to run a high school while you're doing all that planning. And it is just a lot of, anyone that's been a high school principal the last month before graduation is just a really tremendous strain and stress. And our whole staff and our administration did a phenomenal job. And I agree with you, Dave. It was one of the best we've had, best I've been a part of.
Best part of all this, I was talking to Dara, every single kid who was with us this year, every once in a while you was a senior who goes off the reservation, they leave, they went to a different state, and we're trying to track where they go, but they still count for us. Does that make sense? Yep. All our kids graduated. Every kid that we had, we didn't have any kids that were like, oh my God, we didn't get there at the end.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I had that talk with Tom about a week before graduation. I said, are there any surprises? Are there anything that, and he said, no, I think we got them all. And that is a tremendous feat. And that, again, goes back to the staff saying,
wow,
we're going to do whatever it takes to get these kids through. So.
And I know there were several contingency plans in place for weather, for distractions, I mean, what we got to see was just plan A, and knowing that there was plan B and C in talking to you, Tom, leading up to, there was an immense amount of work that went into planning things that didn't even happen. And I agree with everybody. I mean, I've got to be at a few Monroe graduations. Obviously, I've been to a few in the past, and it was a phenomenal, and we can't say enough thanks for everybody, and hearing so many names that were involved, that were involved, you see them there, but you don't think about the immense amount of work that, even if it's just a few hours from an individual that was volunteer time and things outside of their normal day-to-day, just shows how special this community is and how dedicated not just our leadership but our entire staff is to our students, and that's why I'm sitting here, and those are days and nights that will be remembered forever. So hats off to everybody.
And the last thing I just wanted to share, Mr. Fulham already spoke about it a little bit, was the Click It or Ticket award that Monroe received. The police department, state highway patrol, they all came and presented, and that is just, this time of year, I know every high school principal, superintendent, any administrators, they get nervous with proms and graduations and those kind of things, where we've talked about this before. High school kids sometimes think they're invincible, and they do things that they shouldn't be doing, and for our kids to really take that seriously, they physically had somebody that sits out there and counts, watches the kids leave school and counts who is wearing their seatbelt and not wearing their seatbelt. And so for 93%, I believe was the number, to be wearing them every day as they leave school, that's a great thing.
The next highest was 89%.
Yeah.
So we were the only school in Butler County that crossed over that.
So
let's get to 100.
Yes, great job for our kids. So.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right,
All right.
I'm ready to move on.
Thank you. Moving on to Section 8, Superintendent's Personnel Business. Item 8.1.
First up, it's recommended the board approve the following resignations.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
I just want to thank Mr. Pat Toscani for his service here. He is moving on. He found a spot that is, it was about a 40-minute drive, and he's got 2 little kids. It wasn't anything about Monroe. It was about his family, and I can appreciate that and respect that. So.
Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.2.
It's recommended the board hire the following new employees.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Nudge you out just for a little bit. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried.
And I do want to say we have a few of them here in the audience. So, Mr. Grant,
pins?
if you
Yes.
want to get the pins ready.
The most exciting point of every meeting.
Yes. All right. So we'll have them come up.
Yep.
Come on up.
Congratulations, everybody. 1, 2, 3. And welcome, Monroe. Am I on your way, Cinda?
Thank you. Cookies next time?
Have a good evening.
Tim's gonna make cookies?
All right, item 8.3.
It's recommended the board hire the following alternative subs for a 1 year next year.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Wait, Fulham and Ms. Hagedorn?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, these are not ESSER funded either right now. I mean, next year they're going to be general fund. That was a mistake. Did you say Fulham and who?
And
Hagedorn.
And Mrs.
Oh, Mrs.
Hagedorn.
Hagedorn, okay. I'll call it wrong. Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.4.
Next up is contract renewal for the teachers. Recommend that you approve contracts for the following employees. It is broken down by 1 year for new teachers, then 2 years limited, and then a couple 2-year limited for classified.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.5.
It's recommended the board approve the following substitutes.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And then item 8.6.
It's recommended the board approve the following subs for the 22-23 school year. Hopefully they all return.
Yes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Ooh. Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 8.7.
It's recommended the board approve the stipends for the cooperating teachers from Wright State.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions on this? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 8.8.
It's recommended the board approve the $1,250 stipends for the 8 intervention specialists. We talked about this last board meeting. It was due to 2 intervention specialists that were out for the semester while having on maternity leave and not being able to find intervention specialists, so they had to pick up the slack.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And then item 8.9.
It's recommended the board approve the MAS stipends of $1,250 each for Michael Boyer and Heather Wiley. This is replacing a teacher that did it last year, and these 2 teachers are splitting the stipend.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
And you can see that's
Sorry.
paid for out of that grant fund.
Yep. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.10.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts, and as you can see, there's a lot of them. They try to get as many as possible, but there are always obviously a few that are still out there trying to fill.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
I'm just impressed that you have so many, or there's so many just coming back or
Yes.
getting it done. It's good.
Yep. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 811.
It's recommended the board approve the following salary degree increase. A couple teachers working on their education.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Congratulations to those two. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 8.12.
It's recommended the board approve the job share MOU for the primary school counselors. Again, this is, they just have to submit it annually.
Okay, this is nothing we take action on, this one? Or is there?
It is, but we don't have to.
All right.
It's not on
I'm not seeing it. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I do see it says action, but it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't see my little thing at the bottom, I get a little,
Me neither.
get a little confused. All right. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
I'm getting there. Aye. Motion carries.
Keep that moving.
Gotcha. All right. And now, Section 9, Superintendent's Other Business.
It's recommended the board approve the following donations.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Thank you for the donation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 9.2.
It's recommended the board approve the summary of services with Butler County ESC. And as you can see, it has a breakdown of the services, related services, school psychs, speech, physical therapy, gifted.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
So it's getting cheaper?
Yes.
It's just because we have -1
Oh, okay.
psychologist, so.
We don't have less than salary in
Not even here to defend herself.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 9.3.
It's recommended to approve the one-year science digital license, grades 7-8, biology, physical science, and zoology. And that's what Jody was referring to. It'll get us through one more year so we can look at the adoption for
Okay.
the following school year.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions on that? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 9.4.
It's recommended the board approve the summary of services with the Warren County ESC. There are just some services that Butler County doesn't offer that Warren County does, and vice versa, so.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? I see that it's an $11,000 increase. What it made it go up?
Salaries and benefits.
Just salaries and benefits? Okay. Just today's world?
Yep.
Okay.
Paid with a grant.
And this is not paid with a grant, correct?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Or is it a paper?
Says
Oh,
what?
yeah, we use
60.
title.
Yeah,
60.
general
Oh, wait.
Yeah, grant to pay for these services?
Well, we could use a grant. I mean,
Oh,
I
it
think we
says
did.
you have
Yeah,
it
Title
listed.
6B, yeah.
Okay.
6B, we're gonna use that.
Okay. Very good. All right. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And then item 9.5.
It's recommended to approve the Neola policy revisions that were presented last board meeting.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
I'm glad we're doing this. I'm gonna start reading this.
Did you take notes? He did a full
Actually-
presentation. It was really good.
Yeah.
I actually glanced at them.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Then item 9.6.
It's recommended the board approve the use of the water easement to the city of Monroe. And if Jesse, you want to explain this real quickly, because it wasn't what I shared with you.
Okay, all right.
There's a water line that has existed on the east side of our property, basically 63 out to the north of the home. They are tying into Cotton, having two ways to get into water. Once pressure does another benefit to them. In the process of us looking at the 30 feet or 50 feet that's new, they realized they never had a water easement for the existing water. So essentially, we're cleaning up some old business and adding a small additional easement. They intend to clear it and keep it
Okay.
self-maintained, obviously.
So that was from the work that we
Okay.
did up by the cross-country track earlier this year.
Well, no, this is not, this is actually trying very, very, very corner of the property itself.
Okay.
So then they will also clear the other part of the easement, but they've never technically had permission.
Okay,
Oh,
A formality, but.
okay,
okay.
very good.
But there's no new water line, right?
No new water line?
No new water line.
There is some new water line that's gonna go from the existing water line that turns back to a PM or whatever and Rexford.
Yep.
That will go to the backside of the top. So there is a small portion.
Okay.
Can we get a tap? Can we get a tap?
We have fire extinguishers on it already, and I don't know if we could connect to it if we need to, if we have something back there right now, I don't think that we need to do some water itself off and water will stay in. But if we need to, I'm sure that's.
Yeah, you tap in later on. to the road.
Yeah, I'll ask him when we sit there.
I'm already at it. Do that. Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any other questions? All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds? Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 9.7.
It's recommended to approve the revised school calendar for next school year. And I can share with exactly what that is. So in prior years, the school district has always had 2 or 3 teacher workdays prior to the first day with students. As we went through to create the calendar, that which we have to do ahead of time, the discussion amongst the teachers was they'd rather have days in the middle of the year than up front because they're worried about getting their classes ready. Well, now that they're thinking about it, they're worried they're not going to have enough time to get their classes ready. And I said, it does not matter to me, but if we're going to change it, we're doing it before we go home for the school year so we can advertise to the parents now. So there was a date, March 10th, that was a teacher workday. They're just moving that to the beginning of the school year. So there will be 2 teacher workdays, and the actual first day of school will be, is that right, August 17th?
August 17th.
Which is a Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. And there was a PD day and a work day back-to-back 9th, 10th. 9th will just be in March. 9th will just be a normal school day. 10th will be a PD day. So
Okay.
Okay.
same number of days, just flip-flop
Just flip them around.
Yeah.
All right. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
We got our Good Friday off.
Yes.
Just want to
For
make
e-
sure everybody's,
I will continue to recommend Good Friday off as long as I'm sick.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 9.8.
Real quickly back to the calendar with the Good Friday. In addition to, I know we heard from community members that weren't real happy. It also created some personnel issues with us, with that being the day off and having to find exchange days. So it makes sense to continue to have that day off, so. And then, yes, 9.8 is just the calendar of upcoming events, which we all know the biggest event here is Thursday, last day with kids, Friday, last day with teaching staff, so.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. Before we move to section 10 adjournment, we'll start with comments from the board. Mr. Leeds, we'll start with you.
First of all, again, thank you to the staff and Robert and everybody in the building, including the students. They're fantastic students. Very smooth ran year, even though there was some tough things we had to do. And I think like we said about graduation, couldn't have made it any better. In fact, people were asking me, okay, we had such a good graduation, what do we do next year? So,
More fireworks.
and also, I'd like to bring up the fact that we have reinitiated the Facilities Commission, and it's going to be a very busy summer. We will have some direction I assume by the end of the summer on which way we've got to go for the space we need, and so there'll be a lot of things going on in that committee. We had a good starting meeting, and Robert did a good presentation on how things were and what we were into. So, other than that, I'll leave it up to the rest of the board on other things going on.
Okay. Mrs. Hagedorn?
Okay, so I wanted to go back a little bit. April and May is big months for Monroe. I talked to several students, and they had a great time at prom and after prom, so I want to thank everybody that was involved with that. I know there's a lot of organization put together with, and all the back stuff that needs to happen to pull off prom and after prom. I'd also like to thank MEA for the invite to casino night. It was a good night. It was a lot of fun. I know AJ had a great time. I also attended we all attended the all-board meeting, but it was a lot of fun going to Butler Tech and seeing the showcases of the students that attend Butler Tech. So much talent and things that are happening over at Butler Tech with those kids. I want to thank Miss Jeffers and Mrs. Stanger for organizing the 8th grade field trip to, not really field trip, but trip to Washington, D.C., and all of the parents, chaperones that went with that as well. I know it's an amazing trip for the kids. I've never had the opportunity to go to D.C. with the students, but I could just imagine how much fun that would be. Senior awards. It was a great idea. I didn't know who put it on until, Mr. Prayaska had said it was Mr. Kramer's idea. It was great. It was really, it was amazing to see the seniors get their awards and have the underclassmen watch and have the parents there. And the slideshow Miss Fry put together. I didn't cry at all. Just want to say that. Just as a parent, no tears were shed. Graduation, amazing. We talked about that earlier. I hope that we continue to do that and that it's successful in all the years coming up. From the beginning to end of graduation, it was just amazing. Want to wish all the seniors the best in their next adventures in life, for the seniors or the parents of the seniors that could be watching right now. I did get a chance to, I don't know if a lot of parents get to see this, did get to see one of the Tom and John shows. Love it. I thought that was great, and the students, I'm sure, love it. Wanted to thank the Environmental Club. They've all left, but that was a really good presentation today. Like to put that together, and then public speaking for students is such a challenge, and to have that confidence to get up there and to do that presentation was amazing. And I've got some other things, but I just basically want to end with happy birthday to Eric Silverman.
Don't forget the cake next time.
That's
Mr.
all
Fuller.
I have.
Is that it from you, Debbie?
I'm good, thank
All right,
you.
very good. Mr. Fuller.
It's time for my high fives from around the hive. All right, high five to the high school choral choir, who received straight Superior 1 ratings from all judges at the OMEA large group contest at Lakota East earlier this month. Those kids put in a lot of work and got some really good results. High five to Mr. Prohaska, our staff and volunteers who assisted in making Friday night's commencement an unforgettable evening for our graduates and their families. I heard nothing but positive comments from our community, and I think a new tradition of graduation under the Friday night lights may be the new standard for our future commencement celebrations. Mr. Prohaska might be bald by the end of this next one. I mean, just the time that goes into it, the stress. High five to our class of 2022 graduates who have enlisted in the armed forces. Carson Gomi, Blake Jameson, Jesus Bernal Rios, Kirsten Satterfield, Zachary Sloan, Connor Thornton, Tanner Chastain, and Laney Brown. Your bravery to serve and protect our country is remarkable, and the entire Monroe community salutes you. I pray for your safety and well-being as you embark on this heroic journey. And a very, very special high five to all the graduating seniors. The class of 22 have performed at an extremely high level through much adversity. We saw 44 seniors earning an honors diploma, 18 Red Cord recipients, and numerous other accolades that were celebrated at this year's commencement.
Very good.
That's it.
All right. Mr. Carpenter? Yeah.
4.
Only 4 high fives.
I feel like I got cheated out of one. Just real quick, again, graduation is fantastic. Of all the things that we do as a school board, that is always my favorite thing that we do. Because we actually get to sit down and like celebrate a whole class of kids for just all of their achievement here while at Monroe, and it's fantastic. Like, I'm not an emotional person, but I get a little bit emotional sitting there, like, just so happy for all those students. It's fantastic. In a couple of years when it's Hazel, I'm gonna be a total mess. So I better not have like a speaking part because it just won't end well. And then just a big thank you to all the teachers, faculty, staff, everybody. We're like this close to being done, and then everybody can go recharge their batteries all summer long. But just thank you for all your hard work all year long. I know it was hard. I know it's been hard, but just again, just thank you for all your hard work.
Okay.
Dave, can I interrupt before you do the last one? I have one thing that I want to add.
Yes.
I have my notes, and then I have something
She's
else.
taking his 5th high five.
I'm sorry, yes, I'll take his 5th high five. So we always, I just want to share, I got an email earlier today, right before the board meeting. I'm not going to read the whole email, I just want to read a couple of sentences because I think this is pretty awesome. So it starts out, Mrs. Hagedorn starts out and says, I wanted to let you know what an amazing principal Mr. Logan Stanger is. And then it continues on with reasons. Then it ends with, Mr. Stanger has been there every step of the way with her, and we are so fully thankful for him. Monroe is blessed to have such a compassionate and understanding principal for our students. Thank you for your time. I just feel like, kudos from a parent is amazing. And I just wanted to share that with the board and with the teachers, any parents that are out there listening. If you send emails, we read them and we appreciate them and we'll respond to them. And I just wanted to share that was really touching email.
Absolutely. Yep. And yes, so that was the email. And listen, I'll finish up with this. As the president, I don't get to really say too much, but by the time it gets to me, everything's been said. So I will say this. This year started out a little rough with COVID and a little bit of unknowing of what was going to happen. But as I said, all through COVID, it takes a village. And one thing this community has done is rallied around the kids, the community, and made the best of the situation. So to Robert, to Holly, thank you. To the administrators, to every teacher, support staff, my heartfelt thank you to a successful school year. I say it every year, and I think my teachers were right when I was in school. They say that school drags on when you're in school. Now that I'm in my 50s, it seems like every school year just flies by. So, but with that said, thank you to everyone involved. It was a great, successful school year, and graduation was awesome. So, and I love getting the positive emails. Everyone's pretty quick to send the negative emails, but to get a positive one, those have to be shared. So, yes. We'll keep the positive ones coming. With that said, that is it for me. All right, so with that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:20?
So moved.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Everyone have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.